Because in comedy, nobody gives a if you're cool, if you're lame, you win. If you're not funny, you don't.
Jerry Seinfeld, the master of observational comedy.
Guys play with full clips and live rounds. This is not a drill.
The man who turned everyday annoyances into television gold.
First of all, comedians don't need awards. Awards are for people that are looking for work. We're not looking for work.
For decades, he's been America's favorite comedian, the guy who made us laugh about nothing and everything.
They're strong, active, and on high alert at all times. You're sleeping, she's researching.
But behind that signature smirk and those perfectly timed pauses lies a different story. Because Jerry Seinfeld doesn't just have high standards for comedy, he has brutal standards for comedians. In the cutthroat world of stand-up, where egos clash and careers are made or broken by a single set, Jerry has never been one to suffer fools gladly. He's ruthless about authenticity, obsessive about craft, and absolutely unforgiving when it comes to what he calls hack comedy. And over his 5-decade career, that perfectionism has created some serious enemies.
The original pitch was how a comedian gets his material, which Larry and I knew we were lying when we said it, because nobody wants to see that. It's not interesting.
From bitter rivalries that started in dingy comedy clubs to explosive feuds that played out on national television, Jerry has crossed paths with comedians who simply couldn't meet his impossible standards. Some were too desperate for laughs. Others were too willing to sell out. A few just rubbed him the wrong way at exactly the wrong moment. These weren't just professional disagreements. These were personal vendettas that lasted years, sometimes decades. Silent treatments that split the comedy community. Behind-the-scenes battles that changed careers forever. Tonight, we're counting down the 7 comedians Jerry Seinfeld reportedly couldn't stand. The performers who pushed comedy's perfectionists too far, the names he'd rather forget, and the stories behind the grudges that prove even in comedy, some things just aren't funny. Let's get into it. Number 7, Dane Cook. In the mid-2000s, no comedian was hotter than Dane Cook.
Everybody is a little bit racist. Yeah, no. Everybody's a little bit racist when you're hungry.
Sold out arenas, platinum comedy albums, movie deals. He was the first comedian to truly crack the code of social media fame.
I was very judgmental of comedians from the very beginning. Even as a little kid, I would go, this guy's not funny.
Building a massive following through MySpace and early YouTube. To millions of fans, he was the future of comedy. To Jerry Seinfeld, he was everything wrong with the industry. The tension began around 2005, when Cook's popularity exploded seemingly overnight. While Jerry had spent decades perfecting his craft in small clubs, Cook was filling Madison Square Garden with fans who discovered him online. Industry insiders say Jerry was baffled by Cook's success. One comedy club owner reportedly overheard Jerry asking, "What exactly is he saying up there?" The philosophical divide was clear. Jerry built his career on precision, on finding the perfect word for every observation. Cook built his on-energy, on physical comedy and crowd work that Jerry considered cheap. In a 2007 interview with Esquire, Jerry didn't mention Cook by name, but the subtext was unmistakable. "There's a difference between being funny and being loud," he said. Some people confuse the two. Cook, for his part, seemed genuinely hurt by the comedy establishment's rejection. In a 2008 Rolling Stone interview, he addressed the criticism directly. "I respect Jerry Seinfeld immensely, but I'm not trying to be him. I'm trying to be me. And apparently that's not good enough for some people." The real breaking point came during a 2009 comedy festival where both were performing. Multiple witnesses described an awkward backstage encounter where Jerry reportedly gave Cook the coldest shoulder in comedy history. No handshake, no acknowledgement, just ice. Cook later told friends it was like being invisible to his childhood hero. Years later, as Cook's popularity waned and Jerry's continued to soar, the message was clear. In Jerry's world, there's authentic comedy and there's everything else. And Dane Cook, despite his massive success, would always be everything else. Number 6, Carlos Mencia. The comedy world has always been protective of its material, but few comedians have faced accusations as damaging as those leveled against Carlos Mencia.
Yeah, I was under the impression that Civil War reenactments were the South going, "Not this time, you Yankee motherfucker." That's what I thought.
And no one was more vocal about those accusations than Jerry Seinfeld.
I don't like him at all. Oh, no. At all. In fact, I have a particular feeling about it.
Who reportedly viewed Mencia as a threat to everything comedy stood for. The controversy began in the early 2000s when Mencia's Mind of Mencia became Comedy Central's breakout hit. But whispers followed his success. Other comedians claimed he was stealing material, lifting jokes wholesale from lesser-known performers who couldn't fight back. For Jerry, who built his entire career on the sanctity of original material, this was comedy blasphemy. Industry sources say Jerry's disgust with Mencia went beyond the stealing allegations. It was personal. Mencia represented everything Jerry despised about modern comedy, the willingness to take shortcuts, to prioritize television success over artistic integrity. In a 2006 interview with the New York Times, Jerry spoke about comedy's ethical standards without naming names. When you steal a joke, you're not just stealing words. You're stealing someone's soul. The tension exploded in 2007 when Joe Rogan famously confronted Mencia on stage at the Comedy Store, accusing him of joke theft in front of a live audience. Jerry wasn't there, but multiple comedians say he called Rogan afterward to express his support. One comedy club regular recalled Jerry saying, "It's about time someone had the guts to call him out." Mencia, struggling against the mounting accusations, tried to defend himself in interviews. "People are jealous," he told Entertainment Weekly in 2007. "They see success and they want to tear it down. I've never stolen anything from anyone, but the damage was done. His show was canceled, his career derailed." Jerry never publicly celebrated Mencia's downfall, but he didn't mourn it either. To him, the comedy world had simply corrected itself. Original voices survived, frauds didn't. And Carlos Mencia, in Jerry's unforgiving judgment, was always going to be a fraud. Number 5, Andrew Dice Clay. In the late 1980s, Andrew Dice Clay was comedy's most controversial figure.
I mean, Batman vs. Superman. Are you kidding me with this here now?
Leather jacket, cigarettes, nursery rhymes turned filthy. He packed arenas while critics called him everything from groundbreaking to disgusting.
And even in that, there was a veiled reference to his dislike of what I did.
Really?
Anyway, it didn't have my name, of course.
Jerry Seinfeld called him something else entirely, a hack who confused shock with humor. The conflict between Jerry's clean observational style and Dice's deliberately crude persona was philosophical from the start. Jerry built laughs through clever observations about airline food and relationships. Dice built them through offensive stereotypes and sexual vulgarity. They represented two completely different approaches to getting laughs, and Jerry made it clear which one he respected. The tension became public during a 1990 appearance on The Tonight Show, where both comedians were guests. Industry insiders described the green room encounter as Arctic. Jerry reportedly refused to acknowledge Dice's presence, treating him like he was invisible. When host Johnny Carson asked Jerry about the current comedy scene, his answer was pointed. "Real comedy doesn't need to hide behind shock value," he said, glancing toward Dice. Dice, never one to back down from confrontation, fired back in interviews. "Jerry thinks he's above everyone," he told Howard Stern in 1991. "He's got this whole holier-than-thou thing going, but who's selling more tickets? Who's got the bigger following?" The numbers backed up Dice's claim, but Jerry wasn't impressed by popularity. Behind the scenes, Jerry lobbied against Dice whenever possible. When Saturday Night Live faced pressure to book Dice in 1990, Jerry reportedly called producer Lorne Michaels to voice his concerns. "You're giving him a platform," one SNL writer recalled Jerry saying. "You're telling young comedians that this is what works." The feud simmered for years, with both comedians taking subtle shots in interviews. But time proved Jerry right about staying power. Dice's popularity faded as audiences moved on from shock comedy. Jerry's clean, observational style became timeless. In Jerry's mind, authentic comedy always wins. Dice Clay was just noise that eventually had to quiet down. Number 4, Gallagher Leo Anthony Gallagher Jr., known simply as Gallagher, built his comedy career on one signature bit, smashing watermelons with a giant mallet while wearing a beret. For audiences in the 1980s, it was hilarious physical comedy.
He's not funny. That's why I had to do that stupid voice. Because you have no act.
For Jerry Seinfeld, it was everything wrong with the industry wrapped up in one destructive, messy package. Jerry's disdain for Gallagher wasn't just professional, it was philosophical. While Jerry spent years crafting the perfect setup and punchline, Gallagher relied on props, mess, and spectacle. Comedy isn't a demolition job, Jerry reportedly told a fellow comedian in 1987. It's surgery. It requires precision, not sledgehammers. The tension reached a breaking point during a 1988 comedy festival in Las Vegas where both performed. Gallagher's set, complete with exploding fruit and audience members covered in watermelon chunks, received a standing ovation. Jerry's clean, wordplay-heavy set got polite applause. Backstage, witnesses described Jerry as visibly frustrated. "This is what passes for comedy now?" he allegedly muttered to his manager. Industry sources say Jerry actively campaigned against Gallagher's inclusion in comedy specials and festivals. When HBO was considering giving Gallagher his own special in 1989, Jerry reportedly called network executives to voice his concerns. "You're rewarding the lowest common denominator," one HBO insider recalled Jerry saying. "Comedy is supposed to be smarter than this." Gallagher, aware of Jerry's campaign against him, struck back in interviews. "Jerry Seinfeld thinks he's the king of comedy," he told a reporter in 1990. "But at least when people leave my show, they remember it. They go home talking about it. What do they remember about airplane food jokes?" The philosophical divide never healed. Jerry continued to view Gallagher as a symbol of comedy's dumbing down, while Gallagher saw Jerry as an elitist who forgot that comedy's primary job was to entertain. When Gallagher's career eventually faded in the 1990s, Jerry offered no sympathy. In his world, gimmicks always lose to genuine talent, and Gallagher, with his mallet and fruit, was always going to be just a gimmick. Number 3, Jeff Dunham. In the early 2000s, ventriloquism seemed like a relic from vaudeville.
How you doing, Peanut? Doing pretty good. How about you? I'm fine. That's good. That's good. That's good.
Until Jeff Dunham proved that puppets could sell out arenas. His characters, Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, Walter the Grumpy Retiree, and Peanut the Purple Weirdo, became household names.
That's why he didn't like me, because I could actually do it. I can do it. I can do comedy.
But to Jerry Seinfeld, Dunham represented the death of authentic stand-up comedy. Jerry's hatred for Dunham went beyond professional jealousy. It was about the craft itself. While Jerry spent decades perfecting the art of observational humor, Dunham relied on what Jerry considered cheap gimmicks. "Ventriloquism isn't comedy," Jerry reportedly told a group of comedians at the Comedy Cellar in 2007. "It's a magic trick with jokes attached." The philosophical divide deepened when Dunham's Comedy Central specials began breaking viewership records. Industry insiders say Jerry was baffled by the success. How could audiences choose puppets over pure stand-up? In a 2008 interview with Rolling Stone, Jerry didn't mention Dunham by name, but the target was clear. "When you need props to get laughs, you're not doing comedy. You're doing something else entirely." The real conflict erupted during a 2009 comedy festival where both were headlining different nights. Dunham, knowing about Jerry's criticism, approached him backstage seeking some kind of professional respect. Multiple witnesses described the encounter as painfully awkward. Jerry reportedly looked right through Dunham like he wasn't there, then walked away without saying a word. Dunham later told friends about the snub. "I grew up watching Jerry Seinfeld," he said in a 2010 podcast. "I thought comedians supported each other. But apparently there's a hierarchy, and guys like me don't belong." The tension escalated when Jerry began making subtle digs in interviews. Asked about the state of modern comedy in 2011, he said, "Real comedy comes from the comedian's mind, not from characters they create to hide behind." The ventriloquism community knew exactly who he meant. Behind the scenes, Jerry allegedly lobbied against Dunham's inclusion in prestigious comedy events. When the Kennedy Center was considering honoring contemporary comedy in 2012, Jerry reportedly argued against including any novelty acts. Years later, as Dunham's popularity continued despite Jerry's criticism, the message became clear. In Jerry's unforgiving world of comedy purists, ventriloquists would always be outsiders, no matter how many tickets they sold or how many laughs they generated. Number 2, Paulie Shore. In the early 1990s, Paulie Shore was MTV's comedy golden boy.
You guys remember the slip and slide? Of course, my mom put ours in the driveway.
The Weasel, as he called himself, spoke in surfer slang and turned being annoying into an art form. His movies, Encino Man, Son-in-Law, and Biodome dominated the box office. But to Jerry Seinfeld, Shore represented everything that was wrong with comedy's commercial direction.
You're just weak on stage. That's what you are, weak.
Oh my God.
You're a weak act.
Jerry's contempt for Shore was immediate and intense. While Jerry built his career on intelligent observations about human behavior, Shore built his on catchphrases and deliberate stupidity. Buddy this and totally that, Shore's entire persona seemed designed to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Industry sources say Jerry found Shore's success personally offensive. The conflict became public during a 1993 appearance on The Tonight Show, where both were guests. Behind the scenes, Jerry reportedly refused to appear in the same segment as Shore. "I'm not doing comedy alongside a cartoon character," he allegedly told producers. The show was forced to restructure the entire episode. But the real breaking point came during Shore's peak popularity in 1994. When MTV was planning a comedy special featuring multiple comedians, Jerry was offered a significant payday to appear alongside Shore. Jerry's response was swift and brutal. "I wouldn't share a stage with him for any amount of money." The special proceeded without him. Shore, aware of Jerry's hostility, tried to defend himself in interviews. "Jerry Seinfeld acts like he invented comedy," he told Entertainment Weekly in 1995. "But at least I'm not boring people to death with airplane food jokes. I'm giving them energy, man." Jerry's campaign against Shore extended beyond personal rejection. Comedy club owners reported that Jerry would question their booking decisions if Shore was on the bill. Jerry made it clear that he viewed Paulie as a threat to real comedy, one club manager recalled. Not because he was talented, but because he was proving that talent didn't matter anymore. As Shore's movie career collapsed in the late 1990s, Jerry offered no sympathy. He'd been proven right about the difference between genuine comedy and manufactured personalities. Shore's 15 minutes were over, but Jerry's commitment to authentic humor would last forever. In Jerry's mind, the comedy world had simply corrected itself. Number 1, Carrot Top Scott Thompson, better known as Carrot Top, built his entire career around one concept: props, thousands of them. Briefcases full of gags, visual puns, and sight gags that turned stand-up comedy into a magic show.
Be over there, you know, like. And they did like this thing. That was weird. But anyway,
oh yeah.
I got lost in my mind.
That's always so weird.
For Jerry Seinfeld, this wasn't just bad comedy.
Nobody is really that funny. We're all, comedy just like food. It's like, I like this, you like that.
It was an insult to everything comedy represented. Jerry's hatred for Carrot Top was legendary in comedy circles. While Jerry believed comedy should come from the mind, Carrot Top literally carried his humor in suitcases. "He's not a comedian," Jerry reportedly told David Letterman during a 1996 backstage conversation. "He's a novelty act that somehow convinced people he's doing stand-up." The philosophical divide ran deeper than anyone realized. Jerry spent his entire career proving that the best comedy needed nothing but a microphone and a sharp mind. Carrot Top needed an entire production crew just to get his props on stage. To Jerry, this represented the dumbing down of an art form he'd devoted his life to perfecting. Industry insiders say Jerry actively worked to keep Carrot Top out of prestigious comedy venues. When the Comedy Store in Los Angeles was considering giving Carrot Top a regular spot in 1997, Jerry allegedly called owner Mencia Shore to voice his objections. "You're turning the temple of comedy into a circus," one comedian recalled Jerry saying. The feud became personal during a 1998 comedy festival, where both were performing. Carrot Top, knowing about Jerry's reputation for dismissing prop comics, approached him with what seemed like genuine respect. "Mr. Seinfeld, I've always admired your work," witnesses heard him say. Jerry's response was ice cold. "I wish I could say the same." He walked away, leaving Carrot Top standing alone. Carrot Top later described the encounter in interviews. "I thought maybe if he met me, he'd realize I'm just trying to make people laugh," he told a reporter in 1999. "But apparently I'm not the right kind of comedian for guys like him." Behind the scenes, Jerry's campaign against prop comedy became almost evangelical. He'd lecture younger comedians about the importance of pure stand-up, using Carrot Top as an example of what not to do. "When you need props to get laughs," he'd say, "you're admitting your words aren't funny enough." Years later, as Carrot Top found success in Las Vegas residencies, Jerry's position never softened. To him, Carrot Top would always represent comedy's lowest point, proof that audiences would laugh at anything if it was colorful and loud enough. The closing segment reveals Jerry Seinfeld's uncompromising vision of what comedy should be. From Dane Cook's arena-filling energy to Carrot Top's prop-heavy spectacle, from Carlos Mencia's controversial material to Jeff Dunham's ventriloquist act, these weren't just professional disagreements. They were philosophical wars over the soul of stand-up comedy. Jerry's standards were never about personal grudges. They were about protecting what he saw as comedy's sacred principles. Authenticity over gimmicks, intelligence over shock value, craft over convenience. In his world, comedy was surgery, not demolition. It required precision, timing, and above all, respect for the art form itself. But here's what makes Jerry's hatred so fascinating. He was often proven right. Dane Cook's popularity faded. Carlos Mencia's career imploded. Paulie Shore disappeared from mainstream comedy. Andrew Dice Clay became a nostalgic curiosity. Even Gallagher's watermelon-smashing spectacle eventually lost its appeal. Only Carrot Top and Jeff Dunham managed to sustain long-term success, finding their audiences in Las Vegas and touring circuits where Jerry's influence carried less weight. But even their success came with an asterisk. They thrived outside traditional comedy circles, in venues where entertainment mattered more than artistic integrity. So was Jerry Seinfeld too harsh? Or was he exactly what comedy needed? A perfectionist guardian protecting the art form from those who would cheapen it. The success of his own career suggests he knew something about lasting appeal that his targets never quite grasped. What do you think? Was Jerry protecting comedy or just being elitist? Which of these feuds surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes Hollywood drama that reveals the truth behind the laughs.